Welcome along to the Need to Know webinar for March 2026. We're at the end of March, beginning April, Easter next week. Again, 2026 is speeding along. As mentioned in there, 10 years of doing this, eh? Man, I don't look a day over 9. Again, appreciate you taking the time to come along. I have started the webcast. I will double check the recording is on. If you're having any issues, we did do a sound check prior, so just drop out of Teams, come back in is probably your best option. Questions after the event, director@ciaops.com and also on the X @directorcia. I have added more publications since we last spoke, probably 4 or 5 since last monthly webinar. You'll find those at directorcia.gumroad.com. So there's a whole range of publications there that you can take advantage of. And the latest one that I announced last week was my Microsoft Defender for Business implementation guide. So this will take you from zero to hero when it comes to implementing, knowing all the nuances, ins and outs of Defender for Business. So if you're interested in that publication, pop along to directorcia.gumroad.com and have a look. Also, for those of you who might not already be members, think about joining my free Teams shared channel. The blog post is there. You'll get all the slides from today's event after the fact, emailed out to you on the email that you used to register. So watch out for that. In there, you will find information updates, what's happening in Microsoft, blog posts that I wrote, and you're free to ask any questions or seek any advice in that channel as well. The bottom line is there's a slight modification you might need to make your tenant to achieve that. All the details are in that blog post or hit me up to get the details. So our agenda, again, pretty simple, 365 updates, and we'll talk about Copilot agents. So strangely enough, in the world of Microsoft 365, what's happened? Well, Microsoft Cowork, if you haven't seen, Cowork is kind of the clone of Claude Cowork, Claude Coport, lots of C's here. In essence, it's a clone of Claude Cowork, but inside the Microsoft 365 security environment. If you have your tenant set to Frontier, then you will be getting that rolled out to you shortly. I haven't got it in my demo tenant as yet. I have got it in another very, very early adopter tenant from Microsoft, but you should expect to see this rolling out, I would suggest, in the very near future. What does Cowork do? Well, Cowork effectively allows you to create tasks for the AI and then delegate those tasks to be executed automatically. So think about triaging your emails, think about looking through files, think about doing research. So you can kick off half a dozen automated tasks and the AI will go off and run those and then come back and give you answers, or you can interrupt them, you can add more information, you can get them to do a whole range of capabilities. Now, the big advantage, as always, with the Microsoft Cowork versus Claude Cowork is that by default, with your Microsoft 365 Copilot license, you will have access to your emails, your SharePoint, your Teams, your conversations, your chats, and you can use your Cowork automation capability across all of those without having to do anything particularly special. So again, you've got the security, you've got the compliance, you've got the automation, you've got the ability to use the Claude capability to do this Cowork, all built in with a Microsoft 365 Copilot license. Now, a lot of people see a lot of stuff on social media out there about what's the best, this is better than that. What you need to remember, in essence, Microsoft is becoming a model aggregator. By that I mean is that if you buy Microsoft 365 Copilot, you get effectively a full license of Claude, you get a full license of GPT, you get a full license of Grok. So you're going to get all these three models included in your Microsoft 365 Copilot subscription, plus integrated security, compliance, protection, and access to all things like your data securely inside your environment. All of that rather than having to buy a standalone license of Copilot, a standalone license of OpenAI or ChatGPT, and a standalone license of Grok. So in the long run, Microsoft Copilot's going to make more sense as a model aggregator than buying all these, individual models that may be flavor of the month. So again, CoWork is an example of a model from, or a capability from Claude being brought inside the Microsoft environment. Now, there's also a multi-model intelligence now in Researcher. What this means is that you can now run a Researcher, which is the deep reasoning model as part of Microsoft 365 Copilot, and you can now compare results between, say, Claude and GPT, and then get a critique of one versus the other. So what you can say is, compare or analyze this document and then give me a critique using Claude and then using GPT, and then it'll give you a table of, well, Claude says this, GPT says this, these are the comparisons between the two. So imagine it running a prompt and you get two side-by-side results, one from Claude, one from OpenAI. And again, how do you do that if you have standalone Claude and standalone ChatGPT? You kind of can't do that. So that's where the model aggregator makes even more sense. So you'll find this in Researcher. We'll have a look at that. We get a chance. And again, if you haven't got it, we'll be rolling out shortly to you. And I'd expect to see that across the board shortly in all Microsoft 365 Copilot environments. We also now get file level archiving with the Microsoft 365 Archive. So this allows you to move or archive documents that are old or meet some sort of policy criteria. Think something that's maybe 7 years old, or is an ex-employee's files. They can be moved to offline effectively. They're still kept in the Microsoft space, but they are moved kind of offline, free up your SharePoint space. So that is now in public preview. And as mentioned, you get a link to all of these and the slides after today's event. So no need to jot all these down. Microsoft SharePoint is 25. Wow, almost as old as me. It gives you an idea of where SharePoint's come now. SharePoint, to an extent, the brand is kind of fading into the background because Microsoft wants to push things like Teams and Loop and those sort of things. But the core of the storage capabilities in the Microsoft 365 environment is going to be SharePoint. So SharePoint is the technology that OneDrive uses. SharePoint is the technology that Teams use. SharePoint is the technology that Stream uses to save your videos, right? So it is a fundamental service inside the Microsoft 365 environment. Lots of water under the bridge there. So again, a bit of a celebration there and some ideas of what is probably coming forward. Now, SharePoint lists, nice handy little video there, good tutorial on getting the most out of SharePoint lists. So think of a SharePoint list like an embedded spreadsheet in your SharePoint environment. Really easy, quick way to capture information in a rows and columns style format. But the other thing with lists is that it also makes a great data source for things like AI, for things like automations. So again, look at it as a way to store and access information quickly and easily on a web page for your users. And not to be outdone, Exchange has also been banging along now for 30 odd years. Started out obviously on-prem, but still going. Email still rule the world in many cases. So if you want to learn more about, Exchange and what's transpired and how it's moved from on-prem now to basically in the cloud and the scale of it. Again, you think about all the Microsoft Exchange servers in the world that have to be maintained for all those users and all those emails and all the protection and the security. It's a big job. So again, worthwhile celebration, I would suggest. So all of those, I would encourage you to go and get some more details on, especially the CoWork and the multi-model intelligence. But with that, let's talk about Copilot agents, give you an idea of what all this is about. Now, I want to give you a bit of a grounding, I suppose, here on, the stack, what I like to refer as the AI stack. At the bottom of the stack is your data. So your data could be your emails, could be your SharePoint, could be your OneDrive, could be your Teams, could be data you upload manually, could be third-party applications connecting an API or whatever, or on-prem or on your workstation, right? So data is the important stuff. Layered on top of that is security, right? So remember, the data is only secure as the policies that you've put in place over the top to protect that. Now, in the Microsoft space, you're talking about things like Entra ID to manage identity security. You're talking about SharePoint permissions to manage file security. You're talking about purview capabilities like DLP and labeling to protect data items. You've got, again, further ranges of services, but again, it's a layered approach here. On top of that is search. So if today you can find information using search that you're not supposed to or users aren't supposed to, then it's not the data that's the problem, it's the security over the top. So if you or a user does a search and finds the CEO's payroll details, then that is a security issue, right? So that needs to be locked down appropriately. On top of search is built AI. So the LLMs you see, the Claude, the GPT models, Grok, they live on top of all of the others. So AI has no security capabilities, no security settings, right? It depends on the security layer underneath it. If you do not have that security layer correct, then AI, like search, will be able to get access to the data. Okay, so that security layer is super important if you don't want users accessing data via search, and also AI potentially getting access to that as well. On top of that are agents. So agents are the top of the stack. They're the apex predator. They basically will use AI LLMs across a focused data set with a focused set of instructions, right? And in a lot of cases, you can automate these as well. So think of agents as utilizing AI tools via the security that has been configured to access and work with the data that is in the environment. So all of these are super important. Now, in a nutshell, agents are, as I said, working on a focused set of data. An agent may work across a SharePoint library, emails, a particular file, particular websites, right? An agent is designed to work across a limited set of data that you define. An agent provides focused instructions, all right? So what that means is you tell the agent you are a Microsoft 365 technical expert that answers questions on PowerShell and outputs it in a script format, right? Focused instructions. If you use the chat interface, that is the instruction set largely. You are giving it generalized instructions across all of the data it has access to. Agents should be configured to work across a smaller set of data with a focused set or smaller set of instructions. Agents can also take autonomous actions. They can send and receive emails, they can manipulate files, they can do all sorts of things. Basically, anything that you can do with the system, an agent can potentially do the same thing. Now, that is a good and a bad thing in a way, but again, it has this autonomous capability as well. The difference now is back in the day, to be a programmer, you needed to have some skill set around Node or C++ or JavaScript or some particular programming language. You need a skill set in that. Today, the programming language of choice is English. So agents are programmatic AI that you can program using English. So that means you don't need to be a programmer. You don't need to have a super skill set. You just need to be able to define clearly what you want the agent to do for you. Okay, so there is less and less of a barrier now to using AI automations. Now, the best practice when it comes to building agent is not to go out and build C3PO. You want to build lots of little agents that do very specific jobs and then tie them together. Easy to debug, easy to troubleshoot, easy to secure. Trying to create one monolithic agent to rule them all is going to be extremely hard, extremely frustrating, and you probably will not get the output you want, because the more you try and get the agent to do, the harder it is to get these multiple jobs. You're better off saying, I'm going to create an accounts agent, done. I'm going to create a marketing agent, done. I'm going to create a whole range of, just excuse me for 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Had to take an emergency call there. So at the end of the day, the idea here is to break up the agent into, smaller components that do specific jobs. So think of like a company. Okay, so the idea is that you don't employ one person to do 16 jobs. You employ 16 people to do 16 unique jobs, and you employ an additional person to manage all of those 16 people. So that's kind of a general practice, way to think about when you're in there creating agents there. So don't try and build one monolithic agent to answer them all. All right, just go in and build individual agents, get them working, and then build out kind of from there. Now, in the Microsoft space here, the idea is that there are a range of tools, unsurprisingly, that will allow you to basically go in and, create agents. So you can do it with no code. That is the easiest way. When you add a Microsoft 365 Copilot license, you get SharePoint agents automatically for having that license in the environment. Nothing you need to do, nothing the user has to do. They automatically get those agents. The next step up is to use low code. So think of the Power Platform, think of Power Automate, think of those sort of tools that allow you to create things. Think of it like macros in Excel. So again, those sort of power users. You can use what's called the agent builder, which we'll look at, and you can use a more advanced option, which is known as Copilot Studio. Again, you can use the agent builder whether you have a full Microsoft 365 Copilot license or not. To use Copilot Studio, you do need a full license of Microsoft 365 Copilots. You can start your low-code journey without a license, but if you want to scale up, then you are going to need, a full Copilot Studio license to go in and achieve that. The final option, again, this is a good reason to think about the Microsoft stack in total, is you can go into the pro code. So this is where you're actually a developer, you're writing things typically using Azure, you'll be publishing them into Teams or to standalone websites, you'll be writing code using Visual Studio and other tools to achieve that. So the good thing to think about in the Microsoft environment is you can stay with the same identity, Entra ID, the same protections, compliance, management of your environment, but you can start with no code and you can scale all the way up to pro code depending on where you rest. And there may be different options for different users in that environment. So most users are probably no code. Some skilled users may be using pro code. So again, you can move between all of those. Now, an example of a pre-canned agent that Microsoft has built that I would certainly encourage you to look at is the prompt coach. So the prompt coach allows you to go in and add it to any user. There's no cost for that. You don't need a particular license to achieve that. And the idea is that will allow you to go in and create better prompts. So you go into the prompt coach, it's specifically targeted at helping you write a better prompt to get a better result. It won't give you an answer, but it will tell you how to go and improve that prompt, and we'll show you how to do that. So that's an example of a agent that Microsoft has developed, made freely available to all users in the environment that they can add to get better results with their prompts. Okay, so we'll take a look at that. So with that, let me jump across maybe to this one. All right, so here am I in a Microsoft 365 environment. You'll see firstly that I don't have a license. So up the top here, I don't have the work or web button up the top. So this is Copilot Chat. This is the Microsoft 365 environment without having a full license of Copilot as yet. Now, you'll see over here that I already have the prompt coach added. All right, so I'll zoom that in one. So if I go over here, how do I get the prompt coach? So if we go to all agents on the left-hand side here and select that, we are taken to the agent store. And again, you'll see that it's already listed, but if I do a search for prompt coach, you'll see that it's now brought up. Now, if you select that or the user selects that, they will get the initial button to add. All right, so you can just add it to your environment, and then if we open it, what it's doing is it's going to take us to that particular agent, right? Remember, this is provided by Microsoft, no cost to achieve this. So you can go in here and go, tell me how to create a better prompt for let's fix this, prompt to triage my emails on Monday morning. Okay, now it's not going to go in and actually do the triage for me. What it's going to do is it's going to basically take my request and it's going to go in here and act like a coach, and it's going to do a specific job. So it's going to go in here and maybe ask me some additional questions that it may need. And if it's able to, it's going to generate this prompt. Okay, so there's the prompt that it has generated for me, and it's explained why it's good, why it's better, and so on. But what I could do is I could just copy the result of this, okay, and I could go back to my new chat, and then I could just paste the prompt from my prompt coach into that and use that on a regular basis. All right. So my advice to you on starting is to go into all agents. On the left-hand side here, you'll see a range of agents that you have and agents that are built by Microsoft. Some of these may require additional licensing, but there are a number of free ones in there, like the IDs coach, the prompt coach, those sort of things. You'll see that you also get some that are featured, and you'll see that you've also got agents from third-party systems as well. So if you're using Jira, Canva, Asana, Monday.com, you can also add those. And again, don't forget the option to, down the bottom here, select the option to see more. Now, what we expect to see over time is more and more agents added by third parties and included in this marketplace. But you'll see in the third party area, there's a significant number of apps already in there. So before you go and create your own agent, my advice to you is to look and see kind of what is available in the store first. When you add it, it will appear on the left-hand side. You can pin it and you can go in here and share it with others and uninstall it if you want. And I'd highly recommend using the prompt coach as a starting point for that. Now, with that said, what we want to do is be able to create our own custom agent. Now, again, I've got no license here, right? Remember, this is Microsoft 365 without any specific Copilot license. I can go into a new agent here. Right now, every user by default will have this capability across the data they have access to. Now you'll see here that I can create my agent using something called the Agent Builder. I can do it in two ways. I can do it in a describe way, and I can do it in a configure method. So let's start with describe and go in here, create a new agent that helps me with Formula One questions, right? So now it's going to go backwards and forwards and ask me for information, specifics, what I want to call it, how do I want to configure it. So I can use this interactive prompting capability where AI asks me the appropriate questions to create the agent, you know, in a interactive style method, right? So you'll see here it says your Formula One agent expert is set up, and it's given it this name, this description, blah, blah, blah. So it's done all for me, and you'll see here that I can go in and add additional information interactively. But what I'm going to do is go to configure. Now, configure will give me access to the back end. Now, you'll see I can choose a template to start with if I want. I can go in and edit the icon here. So let's go in and generate an icon based on what the agent kind of does. Give that a moment. Easiest way to get a pretty little icon for our agent. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. Okay, so it's taken longer than I thought. Oh no, here we go. It was as quick as you want. You'll see you can also browse your local machine. You can also obviously upload one if you already have a pre-canned one, but it will generate one for you on the fly if you want. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Again, the broader you make that, you'll see here, I probably should have gone in and just done a description here. Would have been better for it rather than working across, all my data. Okay, so it doesn't look very good, so I'll leave that. I can rename here, so I'm going to call this Murray Walker. Okay, this is the description of the agent, so this is what it kind of is, right? And you'll see here are the instructions. So the instructions are effectively like the prompt. So this is this focused instruction set that I talked about, right? So this is where we define our focused instructions. You'll see here that it says the purpose, the general guidelines, the skills, the workflow, so on, limitations, what it can't do or what you don't want it to do, and so on. Next, I need to give it some knowledge sources. Where is it going to get the knowledge from? Now, in this case, because I've got no full Microsoft 365 Copilot license, I can only do two things. I can specify a public source of data, in this case, formula1.com, right? So I'm going to specify that website. I'm also able to upload a document. So if I've got a PDF, I can upload that into the agent, and I can also connect to files in my OneDrive, okay? But the agent, importantly, without a license, will only look at public data like the internet or data I upload into the agent. Okay, so that's the important differentiation if you don't have a full license. Now I can select the option to search all websites, which means it'll search the whole internet, which I'm not going to do initially. Only use specified sources. I'm going to select yes, so it's not going to use its general knowledge or anything else that it can find on my topic. There's the one website that it's going to use, which I specified, and over here, obviously, I can open the website and view it. Do I want my agent to be able to create documents, charts, and code? In this case, no. Do I want it to be able to create images? So let's make that yes. And you'll see here now that I've also got the ability to have my suggested prompts, and I can adjust those, delete those. So if we get rid of rules and regulations, nobody likes rules and regulations. So let's get rid of that. It'll get rid of that, suggestion for us. Okay. And then you'll set the top here that is also going in and auto saving it for us. All right. Now, once I've done that, I can go over here and go to create. So I'm still in test mode here. There's Murray Walker. There's my suggested results. So let's go in here and say, when did Lewis Hamilton win his first Grand Prix? Now, remember, this agent is going to use the instructions for this agent across the one data item I've given it, which is the public website. All right. And that's going to come back and tell us that he won it in 10th of June, 2007, almost 20 years ago. Woohoo! Okay, so we know that it's good, it's working, giving us the results that we want. So what we're going to do is go up here and select create. It's going to create the agent. All right, so it's now said that it's created successfully. Now you'll see that I can go to the agent and Murray appears over here on the left as before. Now I can choose to share that with other people. Right at the moment, it's only shared with me. Now I can share it with anybody in my organization. The key point to remember is that a full license of Microsoft 365 gives that user access to internal Microsoft 365 data via the security assigned to them. If I create an agent and I have a full license and that agent looks at internal data, a user without a license will not be able to use or access that internal data until they have a full license. However, in Murray's case, because the data is a website which is publicly available, if I share this agent with somebody else, they will have exactly the same functionality as me because the data is public. Okay, so that's the differentiation here, right? Just keep that in mind. So I'll keep that just as me. I will go to my agent and you'll see that Murray will appear here. I can pin that so Murray's always available. You'll see that I've also got the ability to share it from here, edit, which we'll come back to, and uninstall. So this is what it looks like for myself and every user that I've shared it with. So if I go in here and go, tell me who won the 1974 Monaco GP. All right, remember, it's going to take that prompt with the instructions that I've given it across the limited data set that I have. And it's going to hopefully look that up and it's going to give me an answer. Now, the reason, obviously, it may be a bit slower here is because it's got to trawl through just one data source. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, when I go back in here, what I'll do is I'll basically allow it access to everything on the internet. So you'll see here, according to my one data source, Ronnie Peterson driving a Lotus Ford was the person in question. So if I go back to Murray, I go back in here and go edit, you'll see that I can come back and I can edit the agent. All right, so what I can do now is if I go down here, leave the instructions the same, you'll see here I can now basically say use all websites. All right, it's going to warn me, switch from specific websites. So I'm happy with that. But continue. And we should see that all websites goes on and our specific sources will probably change as well. So let's get rid of that so it can use its own knowledge inside the LLM as well. I will update that, update the agent there. All right, and then I can again share that and test it. So I go back to the agent here and go in and, for example, maybe say, tell me who won the last 7 World Drivers Championships. Okay, so now it's going to look across all the data in the web, plus the Formula One website that it's given me to generate basically an answer. All right, so there you go. All right, so there it's going to give me all of those answers quickly and easily. All right, so when I've finished, I'm going to remove Murray. I'm going to uninstall him, and now nobody will have access to him anymore. Okay. Now, some of the agents that I've created, for example, that I found very handy is a Microsoft licensing agent. So again, that's across public data. It's going to allow me to answer questions about Microsoft licensing. You could do a targeted agent across Microsoft 365, technical information, and so on. Now, remember, if I do have a full license, then I'll be able to use internal sources. So what does that look like? So let's go to a license here that has, let me just change the color here. You'll see that I've got a work or web option up the top here. So let's make this light so you can see it. Okay, so across the top here, I've got work or web. So that means that I've got a full license. So if I now go in and scroll down here and find the ability to create a new agent, the interface will look basically exactly the same. But what you'll notice is I get a few more data source options that I can choose from because I've got a full license of Microsoft 365 Copilot. Hopefully this comes up. Where's it gone? Come on, come on, come on. There we go. All right, so if I scroll down here, you'll see that I've got a few more icons here. So I can now choose from SharePoint, Teams. All right, so I can have Teams, chats, and conversations, and I can use potentially use my emails as well. Here's the list of files that I've been working on recently, and you'll see here that I've also got Teams chats that I've had in here as well. Now, again, remember, access to the data is governed by a full license of Microsoft 365 Copilot. If the agent requests information across a data source that I don't have a license for, I'm not able to get to it. If the agent requests data across a data source that is I'm secured, right, I can't get to there because of security, it's not going to expose it, right? So you need a license internally, and you also need the appropriate security for that, all right? So the idea here is you'll see here that I can also reference the org chart, and that's another option that we get when we get a full license, all right? And very much looks the same. Now up the top here, if I select the agent builder, you'll see this is a list of all the agents that I have created. Right, so my Formula One expert, which I've done before, so I can go in here and let's just get rid of that. So I can do it for another demo, but these are all the agents that I've created using the agent builder, the light version of the agent creation, that I can then edit, update, share, and obviously, create a new chat. And you'll see I've got ability to download a zip file there as well. And in the top right-hand corner, I can create a new agent. All right. So by default, right, any user will be able to create a new agent over here simply by describing what they want from the agent, putting in the data sources, and then using that agent individually or potentially sharing that with somebody else. The sharing of that agent is governed by the licensing for Copilot and the security set up across the data. And my advice to you is think about all the little things that you could create that would help your day by creating a dedicated agent to handle licensing or tech support questions or general knowledge or how you do your accounts or those sort of things. So all of that is available to you immediately. Now, once you do pay for a license, okay, you do get this new, more advanced capability of creating agents called Copilot Studio. You navigate to that via copilotstudio.microsoft.com. All right. Now, everybody who has a full license of Microsoft 365 Copilot will get access to this. In here, you'll see I have a range of agents that I have, again, already created and are currently in play. You can create a new agent up the top here. I can also import an agent. And when I create a new one, I can again describe the agent in low-level detail and it will prompt me for the results. But let's go in and have a look at this one, for example. You'll notice the differences between this full Copilot Studio agent version plus other ones that I've shown you so far. So some of the big differences here between the light version and what I'm showing you here is firstly the ability to select the particular model. Now in the light version of the agent I showed you previously, you couldn't select a particular model. Here you can force it to use your preferred model here. So you'll see you've got GPT models and also Claude models. You'll also notice that you get analytics, so you get an indication of people prompting, how successful it's been, the results, and so on. Here are the instructions. That's very similar to what we saw with the other agent, all right? And I would suggest you look at Prompt Coach to help you generate that. Here are my data sources. We'll come back to that. You've got more choices in data sources. You can enable the web search. You've also got tools. So tools are kind of like sub-agents that this agent can call. Triggers, these are what initiates an automation sequence, and we'll look at that in detail. Particular sub-agents, topics, and so on. So let's go to knowledge. Now you'll see I'm in the option here, and I've got two websites, but if I go to add knowledge, you'll see that I've got a lot more capabilities. I can upload a file, OneDrive, SharePoint. You'll see I can use public websites. I can use AI search from Azure, Dataverse, SQL, and there are additional advanced options as well, typically from third parties. So I can choose from a much wider variety of knowledge sources. If I go to tools, again, you'll see in here that I've got a significantly larger selection of tools. Now, if you have a look under the connector, the important thing is to note that all the Microsoft tools like Outlook, Teams, SharePoint, users, so, the admin of users, Excel, all of those are already included and easy to add automatically, right? Now, if I look, I've also got the ability to use REST APIs. So if you have a third-party product that you want to integrate, think maybe a PSA tool or a accounting package or something that you want to go and look up, you can basically integrate that via the API they provide you. The idea here is that you've also got what's called Model Context Protocol. So Model Context Protocol, think of that as an agent that these people have created that you can delegate a task to do. So you'll see there are MCP agents for Box, there are MCP agents for Microsoft, there are MCP agents for Azure. And again, the one I'd probably call your attention to is the Microsoft Learn documentation, right? So what I can do here is select to add this MCP tool. Okay, and what that means is if I do a prompt which the AI believes it needs to look at Microsoft documentation, it won't just go and do a regular web search. It'll actually use this model context protocol and the AI behind it to go and make that search. So normally what I do is go in and add and configure, and then I can use that tool. And I'll show you a few more details of that. Here are my sub-agents if I have any. Here are my topics. The topics allow me to control the flow of an agent response deterministically. What that means is if somebody says goodbye, then the agent will follow this process exactly. It won't orchestrate, it won't generate a probabilistic outcome. It will actually follow this flowchart. So again, the idea is our topics are deterministic. You do X, you get Y. Where most AIs, you do X and it probabilistically works out Z. All right, so that's where topics make sense. All right, here's the activity so I can track the prompts that people have put in. If I go in and look at one of the prompts, you'll see what tools, what knowledge it used. All right, so you'll see here it used the documentation MCP server. All right, so you'll see the results here, and I can go through and view these in more details. Just close this off temporarily. I've also got the ability to look at evaluation. So what I can do is I can come up with a set of test data and run it through my agent to see what the result is. And then I've also got my analytics, so I can see what people use, when people use it, how people use it, and so on. All right, so we get a nice level of detail, and so we understand how our users are using it. And then the final one is you'll see that with Copilot Studio, I can choose to publish my agent not only to Teams, to a website, to Facebook, to email, and so on. All right, so there's a lot more flexibility here. Now, of course, we've still got the test option here if you want, that can go in and test that environment. Now let's have a look at, for example, something like my Sage GPT here. So if we have a look at this in a bit more detail, you'll see that what I've done is I've created an agent that has firstly a very focused model, right? So the model in this case will be GPT-5 reasoning, which means it will take longer. Now, if I look at my knowledge, you'll see that it looks across public websites, it looks across internal SharePoint sites, plus a number of PDFs. So all the knowledge sources. Now, if I go into activity, again, we'll be able to see the activity of each query, where it is, how long it took. If I look at my evaluation, you'll see here, I think I set it up. You'll see here that it's gone in and it's already run some evaluation, so I can test it before I release it using an automated mechanism. Here are my analytics, so hopefully we've got some analytics in here. Let's get rid of this again temporarily. Right, so again, you can see who used it, when they used it, why they used it, and if we go to the last one, you'll see that it's actually published into Teams. So if I select the channel here, okay, we should see that it's already been published into Teams, so make available in Copilot, whatever. All right, and then we can open the agent and we can use it inside Teams, and we can also use it basically inside the channel as well as a direct chat if we wanted to do that. So the bottom line is that you can start with the simple create a new agent option here, the light version. And then if you have a full license, you're able to use what's called Copilot Studio. And Copilot Studio gives you far more granularity, far more control over the agents you create. As noted, you can create as many agents as you want that do, specific jobs. So in my case, I've got an agent that I created that uses AI across my blog. So I can use that day to day, kind of instead of searching, the benefit is that if someone asks me a question, rather than just giving them a blog article as a reply, what I can do is I can generate an answer using AI across all of my blog articles, pulling them together and giving a better response rather than just a single article, right? So extremely powerful ability to surface information that I've, basically built up over the years. So that's a good example of, something that you may want to create in more detail. And you could create an agent that looks across my blog, a couple of other really high quality blogs to answer specific questions that you want in that respect. All right. So that's kind of the difference. Copilot Studio is more for the power user, the people, the person who is creating macros and Power Automate and so on, and using that to create AI inside the organization. Now, quickly, if we go to admin.microsoft.com, all right, so this is the back end controlling aspect. You'll need to be obviously a global administrator to potentially have access to this area, but the idea here is to kind of demonstrate to you, that the management of this, again, is one of the big benefits of the Microsoft stack, is that it's all built in, it's all visible, it's all surfaced, whether you use the light version of agent, you add a third-party agent, or you build your own in Copilot Studio, or you build your own, using Azure tools. So up the top here, here's our Copilot controls, right? So that's controlling the Copilot. But down here is our agent control, right? So if we go in here and look at all agents, we'll see here, this is the registry. So you'll get a list of all the agents that are in my environment. You'll see here there are 218. All right, so I'm able to go in and control, permission these, and determine, apply analytics, see what people are using and not using in the environment. So all of that kind of is built in as well if you want. Finally, the last option, as mentioned, is if you want to scale beyond the environment in Microsoft 365, Microsoft has something called AI Foundry. All right, so this is an Azure service. So if we go into Azure Foundry here, a little bit more involved, a little bit more developer focused. Right, so if I go into Foundry here, okay, you'll see that, you get a larger selection of capabilities, more options you can select. These are all the models that are available to you. So basically every model under the sun here. So whether you use OpenAI, Claude, Fireworks, Llama, all of that is available to you to build agents using that capability inside Azure. Now you can integrate that quickly and easily back into things like Teams and so on. So if we have a quick look at Agent 508 here, right? So there's all the kind of information about that. So let me just go to the new Foundry option here. All right, and yep, okay, close that. And we go into this, go into models. So this is an agent I created in AI Foundry, but you'll notice here, these are all the models that are available to it. So this agent allows me to select multiple models to work with. So I can use DeepSeek, I can use GPT, I can use Llama, I can use all of those, where if I go back to Copilot Studio and choose, an agent there, I'm restricted to only being able to select one model. So I can select GPT, I can select Claude and potentially Grok as well. So I've only got those model choices, but I can only choose one at a time. Right, so if I go back in here and we have the option for, one model at a time. But in Foundry, I could potentially use all the models kind of all at the same time. Right, so that's the scale. So you've got that capability across the Microsoft stack. So my takeaways are, if you want to start doing this, start small, don't try and boil the ocean, keep it simple, build it out, and break it down into smaller components. Don't try and build a massive thing. Solve one problem, then solve the next, solve the next. Don't try and make it so you're building an agent to solve multiple things at once. That's where you get confusions. Upfront planning, right? Define what the agent needs to do. What are the outcomes? How are you going to use it? Where are the data sources? What are the instructions? Do that before. Don't build agents on the fly. That's where you get, hallucinations and you get unexpected results, right? Upfront planning goes a long way. Don't forget your security, right? If you haven't got your security right, your agent is going to potentially take advantages of hold insecurity. And it's not the AI's fault. Again, it's the security layer. Make sure you have that correct. Agents can be created with the basic agent builder, with Copilot Studio, with AI Foundry. There's a range of tools, and they can all be integrated into the Microsoft 365 environment to suit your needs. You can have as many agents as you kind of want. Remember, agents are probabilistic, not deterministic. That means that when they generate an answer, it's a probability of the outcome. It's not an absolute, right? It's not like writing code. When you write lines of code, you get the results that the code runs. Agents use AI, which is a probability of an output, right? You cannot get the same output twice because it's probabilistically generating that on the fly. Many people get super frustrated, but that is very important to remember, that you're giving AI general instructions and is executing on those general instructions to the best of its knowledge and its ability. It's not following specific instructions line by line by line by line by line, right? So again, it's kind of like a person in that way. Number of resources that you can get access to. I'll send the links to this out after the fact. All right. Some resources from me. Again, blog's the best place. YouTube video, GitHub repository, podcast, Patreon community. And again, if you haven't signed up to my email list, I encourage you to do that. And again, publications. If you already have access, please share that with other people who don't have access or may be interested. It does help me out. Every little bit does help out. And again, for those of you who aren't patrons, I think most people are, appreciate obviously those people. And if you can recommend this to others, I'd appreciate that too. CIOpatron.com. Information and updates on the Microsoft Cloud, Microsoft AI, Azure, everything, SMB, scripts, automations, PDFs, and access to all the publications I wrote in my Gumroad store. So if you are a patron, all of the publications I write that I sell via my publications bookstore, I suppose, is available to you for free inside the patron community. All right, so I notice that we're pretty much on the hour. Are there any questions before we call it quits and head off for the rest of our day? Type them into the chat. Raise your hand. Happy for you. But remember, we are recording, so that information will be captured during that process. All right, well, I don't see any questions lined up in the queue. I'm going to assume that everybody's pretty happy with that information. Hopefully this provided value. I will upload this to the YouTube channel if you do wish to review it, and also make it available in the Patreon community as well for benefits there. If there aren't any more questions, again, I thank you very much for attending. Watch out for the next episode next month of the Need to Know webinar.